Okay, the next fly we're going to be tying is a little variation or a Frankenstein of a pattern. It's actually a classic pattern. It actually started out as a streamer pattern, which a lot of people still fish it as a streamer pattern. Dave and I tweaked it a little bit here and there over the years and finally came down to the pattern that works best for us with this. And this is called, what we want to call, is a CDC Picket. First thing we're going to do is we're going to clamp a size 14 hook in the vise, pinch the barbs down. And you can actually tie this pretty much any size you want, but once again this is a size that kind of works for us. We go with a 14 or bigger actually on it. We have it tied smaller, but the 14 and plus sizes work better for us. Once I clamp the hook in the vise, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some bright red 8/0 tie-in thread. Once again, I'm going to start at the top of the fly. I'm going to wrap my thread back, just laying my base down. Once again, I'll pull my tag over at a 45-degree angle, which wraps the thread and slides it right down so it stacks it right in front of the other one. We're going to clip that off. What we're going to do now that's a little bit different is we're going to bring this thread back, and we want to keep the thread right in front of the other. We're going to bring it back and we're going to put a tag of red thread on. So I want to bring it well past the bend of the hook, as you can see right here. I'm going to bring it well past the bend of the hook. I'm going to make a tag on there. So we're going to lay down some red colored thread. And bring it up, and we're going to tie in our tail. And our tail is going to be in front of the red tag that we have here. Now what I'm going to use for my tail is some wood duck flank feathers. This is basically what it looks like here. I'm going to take a clump and break off. Kind of even the tips up a little bit. We're going to bring the tail over and right in front of the tag, we're going to lash that down. Once again, we're going to use the same technique we've been using throughout the video to make the tail stand up at a 45-degree angle. We'll pinch our thread, bring it around behind, pull the butts up, in front. Once again, behind, pull it up till you get the angle you want. Lash it down. Clip these off right here, kind of back at a 45-degree angle, and the tail's tied in. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some strung peacock. Comes in different sizes. You can get the short sizes, you can get 10-inch, 7-inch, whatever you want. It comes strung and it actually looks like this. We're going to pull a few of the fibers out. Basically on a 14 I like to use 3. We're going to take 3 of them, and what you want to do is you want to tie this material in at the tip. But a little tip for you is you want to go back about 3/4 of an inch and snip that off. If you tie that in right at the tips, you're going to have a problem with the tips breaking and snapping. This is pretty tough material to work with, but we're going to give it a shot here. Another thing that I like to do is I like to comb the fibers back, get them to stand up a little bit at a 90-degree angle. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to tie the fibers in at the tip, one loose wrap, lash it down, and I'm going to work my thread up towards the eye of the hook. Once again, trying not to cram the head, because we're going to actually tie a bigger head on this fly. So I want to leave about an 1/8 inch from the eye of the hook back to where I stopped. The next thing I'm going to do is comb my fibers back. I'm going to take my hackle pliers and clip my hackle pliers in. Here's another thing that I like to do, the waste material at the end. I like to snip that off so it's not in the way. Since the peacock's so hard to work with, it's actually kind of brittle. What I do is I kind of twist it before I start wrapping. Once I get some twists in it, I'm going to start wrapping, and I'm going to take one right in front of the other. And as I wrap it around, I'm going to twist as I wrap, which will actually add some strength to the fly. We're going to bring that right up to where we ended our thread. One right in front of the other. You can see how the body's built up, but it's not actually a tapered body. It's all basically the same. It's symmetrical as you bring it up. And what I'm going to do is tie that off with a couple wraps. Need the bobbin hang down. Oh, this is the tricky part. The excess material that you have left over here, you don't want to clip it off at this point. You want to leave that material on because that is actually going to be your head when we're finished. So since I have it already lashed in and I don't want to tangle anything up, I'm going to take my hackle plier off and just leave that free. The next thing I'm going to do is I've already selected a CDC feather. This is just a tan CDC feather that I have here. This is what's actually going to give the fly all of its movement, is the CDC feather. A lot of people will say, well, a CDC feather is actually used in tying dry flies. Yeah, that's true, but actually the way we fish it, we're going to sink this, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take and actually comb the fibers back on the CDC feather, and you want to get them all going the same direction. So I'm going to comb them back, and once I get it back, I'm going to kind of pinch it off so that I have this clump. I want the clump to lay so it's fanned out over the back of the fly. And I'm going to use this for my wing, and this is going to extend back, almost back to the tail. So I'm going to pinch that off. So I get that in place, I'll put a loose wrap on. 2 or 3 wraps to hold it. Okay, you can see the wing folded back. Actually, this is where the fly gets most of its movement from, right here. This and the tail. Once I get that in place, I'm going to snip that off. I'm going to go back to the wood duck feather once again. I'm going to pull a clump of wood duck fibers off. Don't get too carried away with that. The bigger the fly, the more wood duck. Okay, the smaller the fly, the less wood duck you're going to need. And actually, this is going to be an overwing that sits on top of the CDC feather. What I like to do with it is I like to extend it back just a little bit beyond where the CDC feather is, the tips of the CDC feather. Once we get that in place, we're going to pinch that off and use a loose wrap to secure the overwing in place. Once again, we'll snip off the ends. Now you can see on the fly how much room has been left from where the feathers attach to the eye of the hook. What I like to do now is I'm going to finish this off, and I'm going to clip my hackle pliers back on. I'm going to fold it back and wrap 2 wraps over top and bring my tying thread to the eye of the hook. Once again, I'm going to wrap the peacock. I'm going to start right over top of the red. Put 2 wraps. I'm going to finish it off with 2 wraps to secure my peacock. I'll snip the excess off. Now, once my head's in place, I'm going to take and finish it off with the red thread. So we've actually left just enough material, enough room to wrap a nice neat head on it. Once the head is in place, we'll take our whip finish, a couple turns with the whip finish, Once again, I like to rock it back and forth to seat it into place. Cut the back side off. And actually, this fly can be used in a variety of situations. Probably the best time that Dave and I have found to use this fly is during a caddis hatch. It's an excellent fly to use, but also during mayfly hatches. If you rig this up with a couple different flies, you can use it as a search pattern, or if the caddises are hatching, it's a pretty decent pattern to use during a caddis hatch. It's pretty much like throwing a stick of dynamite in the water. That's the CDC Picket. You know, a songwriter once said that the times they are changing. And that's true, with all the new modern materials they have and techniques that are out there. But the whole idea of fly fishing was started years ago, and that was with wet flies. So if you want to enjoy yourself, try a little bit of old school.
This is the first of a series of instructional videos. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the stream.